60 Minutes Rewind.
By almost any measure, the University of Michigan has one of the largest and most successful college sports programs in America, with hundreds of athletes competing in nearly 30 sports. For the last quarter century, Michigan also has had a sort of secret weapon. Someone who stars like Tom Brady and Heisman Trophy winner Desmond Howard say played a crucial role in their success, not just in college, but in life. Thousands more less famous Michigan athletes say the same thing. His name is Greg Harden, and you've probably never heard of him because he doesn't coach the X's and O's. Instead, he's a coach of the heart and the mind.
The whole mission today is teaching you to be honest with yourself. I'm asking you to be the expert on you, but it will only happen if it starts here first.
It's a Monday evening, and Greg Harden is practicing his unique coaching style with the University of Michigan men's lacrosse team.
You can be a part of change, or you're going to have your ass kicked by it. Am I right or wrong?
He's part coach, part counselor.
How will I transform myself to be the best?
And part preacher.
This is mental at this stage. Everybody in this room is a qualified athlete. Physically, you have the tools. Now it's about this. It's about this. It's about getting this together.
His title is Associate Athletic Director, but he's really Counselor-in-Chief to Michigan athletes in 29 different sports.
Their expectations that society has is that they have to be Peter and Priscilla perfect and have no deviations from what it means to be a college athlete. And what we discover is that they keep turning out to be human beings.
Human beings like A.J. Williams, a sophomore tight end on Michigan's football team.
We got a lot to talk about. You pissed a lot of people off. You disappointed a lot of people.
He's in Greg Harden's office this day because he's been suspended for an underage drinking violation.
I need to make better decisions and put myself around the certain people that need to be, that want to make those decisions with me.
It's not your drinking, it's your thinking, your decision making. That's what we talked about. And you're going to have to connect to what is your vision, what is your mission, and what kind of man do you want to be when you leave here. My job with him is to get him to stop making excuses and own and claim. If he makes a mistake, own it, claim it, be responsible for it, and then decide not to do it again.
And how's it going so far?
So far, we're making progress. But he is a brilliant young man, and he is so gifted and so talented, but he has never had to work as hard as he's going to have to work at this level, in this environment. The demands on Division I are radically different from high school.
I remind people all the time, what were you like when you were 18 or 19? Did you have it all figured out? Were you prepared to play in front of 115,000 people or millions of people on television?
Dave Brandon has been Michigan's athletic director and Greg Harden's boss since 2010.
When I came into the job, I'd been close enough to the athletic department that I knew Greg and I knew he was here, but I had no idea what he did. And I got into this job.
That's an honest response. I appreciate that.
And I got into this job, and for the first few months, it's like, what does this guy do? You know, he's student athletes. They go and they shut the door, and what's this about? And then the first feedback I remember getting was from the coaches. They started talking about what an invaluable asset Greg Harden was to their program, and it was like, why? And they began to explain to me the positive feedback they were getting from our student athletes.
Greg really pushed me in a direction that I wasn't sure I could go.
Tom Brady met Greg Harden more than 15 years ago during his junior year at Michigan. Brady had been waiting his turn as a backup, only to see his coach all but promise the quarterback job to a hotshot recruit named Drew Henson.
And he comes in my office and he's like, he's just frustrated. He's tired, and he knows that he has to do something different, and he can't figure out what.
I used to say, well, I don't get the opportunity. They didn't give me the opportunity. They're not giving me a chance. You know, they like this other guy more. They like this other. And, you know, when you're an 18, 19-year-old mind, and your whole life people have always told you how great you are as an athlete. And, oh, no, you're perfect. You're great. You just keep doing what you're doing. You know, he's probably the first person in your life that says, well, you don't deserve to really be on the field.
He said that to you?
I don't remember if that's exactly what it says, but he said, look, there's a reason why the other guy's out there, you know, and you got to figure out how you can get your coaches to believe in you, to put you out there. And a lot of it was, And they told me this all the time. If you don't believe in yourself, then why is anyone else going to believe in you?
At the time, no one believed that Brady would become one of the greatest players of all time.
I mean, there's no way in heck I thought that Tom Brady would be Tom Brady. I knew that he was a kid that I thought the world of.
I wasn't the highest recruited kid. I wasn't the best athlete. I didn't blow anybody's, socks off when I went out onto the practice field to try to go out there and compete. And I found I could get the edge through my competitiveness and through my drive and my work ethic. And those were some of the things that Greg really said, okay, well, this is what your strengths are. Let them be your strengths.
He still can't run. He can't run a lick, but you can't catch him. Think about that. There's nothing you can do to stop Tom Brady. But Tom Brady physically has all these disadvantages when you go and say, run this, do this, this drill, that drill. It doesn't matter. What matters is his heart and his mind. You can't measure that boy's heart. You can't measure his mind.
Safe to assume he's one of the most influential people in your life?
Without a doubt. I'm very blessed. I was very blessed to be in Ann Arbor, to meet with him, to spend as many afternoons as I did with him, and I'm forever grateful to him.
There's no off-season for Greg Harden because he's available to every Michigan athlete in every sport. In any given year, that's more than 900 students. Lexi Irwin and Molly Toon are senior leaders of Michigan's volleyball team and very regular visitors to Greg's office.
I had struggled with confidence a lot, and
was it your coach who suggested you go to see him?
Yeah.
Wow, okay.
And so when I went to go see him, I kind of saw myself as the problem child, and I was like, this sucks. Like, I'm going in, I'm in trouble, I don't know what's going on, like my coach thinks I'm crazy. So I went in and I kind of sat down with like a little pout.
I listened to her for several sessions, talking about how difficult it is to be on this team and with this coaching staff, and she went on and on and on, and I swear to you that I listened intently, and I understood exactly what she meant and what she was experiencing. And then by the fourth session, I have to ask her, how long did she plan on being a victim?
Did that shock you, he said that?
Yeah, because when you're going through something that's tough, it's really hard to not see yourself as a victim, and the tough love is what really challenges you to grow as a person.
I had a situation that I went in also, and I was upset and crying for a little bit, and then he was thinking like he does, just sits there. And then he just asked me, or he was just like, all right, you need to get over it. Just straight up like that.
You're bearing your soul to him, moved to tears, and he says you got to get over it?
When he says get over it, it's just kind of like, whoa, but then once he explains it, then you understand.
Understand Greg's central message. Be honest with yourself, take responsibility for yourself. Desmond Howard got that message more than 20 years ago and went on to win the Heisman Trophy.
I can tell you this, if Greg Harden wasn't at the University of Michigan in the late 80s, I don't win the Heisman.
That's a very strong statement.
It does not happen.
When Howard first landed in Greg Harden's office, he was a disgruntled sophomore who had been told to switch positions.
He sought me out because he was ready to get out of here. He had decided he was leaving.
You remember the first encounter with him?
I sure do. That conversation that began was, it was just talking about, well, who are you? Well, what are you about? Well, what is your dream? Well, based on your dream, it seems to me that leaving would be a great idea, especially if you have a fantasy that they'll be different somewhere else.
You use the word fantasy.
A fantasy, yes. I had to get him to stop fantasizing about being a star and to turn into a student involved in athletics who would allow himself to be coachable.
I believe Greg thought, if I can get the most out of you as a student athlete, as a person, then everything else would be able to take care of itself. But first, we need to get you mentally right.
That's what helped him to win the Heisman?
God helped him with it. The bottom line is that his job was to become the absolute best Desmond Howard.
That's how you helped to make him a better player.
he became a better man.
The story will continue after this.
All of you, read this out loud.
Becoming a better man often means going against how the culture defines manhood, especially for college athletes.
Because it's popular to be hard and macho and unyielding and untouchable. They have to come in and act like, you know, I'm hardcore. You know, me and you know, bruh, that's not where you're from. Your mom and daddy are professors. You know, could you stop it? I've got kids that walk in and they're so busy trying to prove that they don't need any help, don't need to talk to anybody, that they won't use the resources that we have. They won't allow themselves to grow.
So there's certain kids who are just simply lost because they refuse to open up.
That's correct.
That's a pretty good description of Greg Harden himself when he first came to Michigan. Recruited from his Detroit high school in 1967 to run track, he arrived on campus with a chip on his shoulder.
I was an idiot. I was that arrogant. I was ignorant. I was that guy who didn't have a clue, who thought he knew everything.
You have often referenced yourself, referred to yourself as being an angry black man then.
I had perfected it.
You perfected it?
I perfected it.
Which means?
I was committed to being angry, and I was committed to being filled with hate.
He says he was less committed to running track or to making smart choices.
The coaches weren't too happy with me, but the primary excuse I used to leave was I got pregnant. See, you got to understand and teach young men to say, I'm pregnant. If your woman's pregnant, you pregnant, fool. So I got pregnant and left to go get married and get a job in the factory and move on.
Where did you go to work?
I worked at Great Lakes Steel. I remember clearly putting on a rubber suit and going in underneath the furnace in 105-degree temperature in a rubber suit and going to clear the coils out from underneath the machine.
Here you are, talented athlete.
Yes.
Having been recruited.
Yes.
And you're in a rubber suit with 105-degree up under the furnace.
Yes, sir. And so it dawned on me that perhaps I should give this college thing another shot.
It actually took him 3 shots before he graduated from Michigan at the age of 28, long since split from the mother of his son. He then got a master's in social work and built a career counseling people struggling with addiction to alcohol and drugs. One day in 1986, the Michigan football team, coached by the legendary Bo Schembechler, came calling.
I got a call from Dr. Robert Anderson, the head team physician, who wanted to know if I would do a lecture for Michigan football. And I politely told him that no.
Greg Harden, this is the University of Michigan.
And that's what he said.
And he's representing a football program with an icon.
Exactly.
Who is by the name of?
Schembechler.
And you told them?
I said no, because what you're asking me to do is do a 20 to 40-minute rah-rah lecture, one stop, you know, hit them between the eyes with this is drugs and this is what it'll do. We love you, just say no. And 2 weeks later, I got a call from Dr. Anderson, and he says, Schembechler wants to meet you. Well, I'm young and dumb and full of myself. I said, well, hell, I want to meet him.
When they met, Harden didn't just convince Schembechler to start a comprehensive counseling program, but also to surrender some control of his team, starting with the very first meeting.
He introduced me, and he said, this is Harden, and he's going to, and I need you, and boy, and this is, and you better focus and pay attention, and you know, and then he allowed me to say, well, thank you, Coach. Appreciate that introduction, and if you'd be kind enough, I would like for you to exit the room now.
And?
He says, got it. I'll see you guys later. Remember what I said. Walked out the room.
And he left, and the real message there was a message to Greg, and that is, I trust you. I trust you. And how important was that? And now it's a couple decades later, and we're still trusting Greg Harden.
And at 64, Greg Harden is still working to convince 20-year-old athletes that contrary to what they've been taught all their lives, they won't find the key to success on the playing field.
That's a tough sell for an 18-year-old, 19-year-old. Once you tell, I'm looking at a guy whose dream and vision is to be the best in their sport. And I'll tell them that if you want to be the best, you've got to decide with or without it, you're going to be amazing. Your life is going to be amazing. Then all of a sudden, your sport falls into a context. All of a sudden, you begin to understand that you play football. You're not a football player. You just happen to be better at it than most.